Parliamentarians have been entrusted with the enormous responsibility of amplifying the voices of citizens in the halls of government and ensuring that governments are making decisions that best serve the interest of their people. Parliamentarians can also play a vital role in empowering citizens to call to task governments that don't do enough to stop corruption. In most countries, Parliament has the constitutional mandate to both oversee government and to hold government to account. Citizens bear the heavy economic and social cost of corruption. In a democracy that works, they look to their parliament, the people they selected to set the framework of law and oversee its implementation, for help. This does not imply that corruption is caused by a weak parliament or parliamentary inaction. Rather, because the causes of corruption are many and complex, it suggests that Parliament plays an essential leadership role in combating corruption. Anti-corruption policies should be extended to include each of the core governance responsibilities of Parliament, that is, legislation, oversight, and representation. Address issues related to party political financing and parliamentary ethics, and strengthen international parliamentary networks fighting corruption. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justine Muturi, knows that the fight against corruption is critical and that any aspersion cast on its integrity does not augur well for this important institution.
The National Assembly, being part of Parliament, has a responsibility in the fight against corruption to ensure that its oversight role is taken to the next level. I'm sure that Kenyans have seen in the last couple of months that the committees of the House have been up and about whenever they suspect that something may be going wrong somewhere in government and in any other institutions of government, whether at the national level and at other levels, especially with regard to the areas that they oversight. So basically, generally, that's what the House will be expected to do at its committees. And where issues have been found, the committees have not shied away in bringing reports, some of which could be very stinging. And there are quite a number, particularly, with the watchdog committees, public investments and public accounts. So I could say that the committees and the House indeed is working in that direction. Any suggestions that maybe members could be behaving in a manner that is not expected of them, and my attention has been drawn. I've always indicated, made communication, reminding members of what is required of them. But of course, you cannot gag the public or anybody at large from making whatever allegations that they may wish. Matters of integrity, of course, if they go beyond what we can do here, would obviously require to be reported to the relevant authorities to deal with, because it's a matter of some of them would require even prosecutions, and would leave that to either the Anti-Corruption Commission or the Director of Public Prosecutions to handle.
Good evening, viewers. My name is Kenneth Njiru, and I am sitting in for Professor PLO Lumumba for the duration of this program. About 12 years ago, Kenyans of their own volition poured into the streets fighting the beast of corruption. We saw them in the media, arresting policemen and taking them to police stations saying they had had enough of corruption. The fire may have burnt down, but the embers, the hot coals are still alive. And this is why the National Anti-Corruption Steering Committee has brought to you this program, Moving the Masses, so that we may fan these embers again into a bright new flame that will indeed ban corruption in all its manifestations. As you all know, against the new constitution, we have a government that has three arms. There is the executive, there is the judiciary, and there is the legislature. Last week, we had the Speaker of the Senate, who was with us on this program, Moving the Masses, telling us what the Senate had done to fight and slay this beast of corruption. Today, we have in the House the Honorable Justine Muturi, who is the Speaker of the National Assembly. Bwana Speaker, karibu sana.
Asante.
Thank you to the program Moving the Welcome to the program Moving the Masses.
Well,
thank you. Now, Mr. Speaker, may I call you Mr. Speaker, sir? I don't know whether that is corrupting the language outside the House. Is it okay if I say Mr. Speaker, sir?
You can use any.
Can use any, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, when one looks at your career as, in Parliament over the last couple of years, almost 20 years now, you have worked through many committees. You've been a member of the House Business Committee. At one point in time, you are the opposition chief whip. At some point in time, you chaired the Parliamentary Investment Committee, and indeed, it is cited that you are one of the chair. I think as a chair, you spend the most time as a chair of the Parliamentary Investment Committee, if I may say that. You're also cited as having written many papers, both internationally and locally, in international conferences on corruption, and indeed addressing the African Parliamentary Network on corruption. And I mean, there are many feathers to your cap. You're also part of the team that oversaw the writing of the new constitution. Bwana Speaker, what moved you to do this as an individual, from an individual perspective, and what is your view about corruption?
Thank you. Let me begin by saying that having worked a bit in the public service and joining politics, I've come across many facets of our society. Among them is a deep culture of poor respect, a culture of poor respect or regard for public resources and public funds, to the extent that when people are found misusing public funds and public resources or misapplying them, it is not a matter that seems to attract serious anger from the public. Of course, our levels, our style of politicking also is such that those that are most involved in the misuse and misapplication of public resources tend to hide behind their political parties and communities. And that is a matter that really we need to think. I felt that it's a matter that we needed to confront with all the seriousness, using all manner of mechanisms to try and bring down this low level of appreciation of what is yours and what is ours. Yes.
And in your experience, Bwana Speaker, did you find corruption fighting back in the things that you did? For instance, I imagine as the chairman of the Parliamentary Investment Committee, you must have seen a lot of stuff coming across the table. I mean, what was your feeling about it? Were you challenged? Did you feel like giving up sometimes?
Well, there are usually quite a number of challenges when you are, especially if you are chairing that committee.
Yes.
The two watchdog committees. Yes. In that a lot of times people are either not willing to appear before the committee.
Yes.
And even when they appear, they are less willing to provide information that is in their possession.
They're telling half-truths, as it
They'll
were.
tell you half-truths.
Yes.
But the most frustrating among them is, notwithstanding the mandate of the committee, is with regard to the reports that they produce,
Yes.
and which reports are eventually adopted by the plenary
Yes.
of Parliament.
Yes.
Implementation
Is a problem.
is a big problem.
Indeed,
You may make recommendations that the appropriate body with the expertise,
Yes.
like the police, the office of the Attorney General, the
Yes.
office those days,
Yes.
the office of the DPP, the office of the Anti-Corruption Commission, and the CID,
Somehow things don't move.
investigate
Yes.
matters, because of course Parliament is limited
Yes.
in how far it can go in undertaking investigations. For instance, some areas that will require some forensic investigations, and that all that the committee and indeed Parliament will do is to recommend that certain action be taken in a particular way,
Yes.
with a view to realizing certain ends that may be within the reports.
Yes.
But that is one of the biggest challenges. That I think since the introduction of multi-party politics in Kenya, committees have faced.
Now, Bwana Speaker, the National Assembly deliberates and resolves issues under as is mandated by the Constitution. It also allocates revenues and resources, but most importantly, like you said, it has an oversight role to ensure that the resources of this country are used properly. Now, maybe you can just very quickly share with the viewers how it does this. You talked about implementation. I believe there is an implementation committee. Maybe you can just share with us very shortly how you work through the committees, and also some of the things that possibly the present National Assembly is doing, some of the initiatives it is taking to ensure that corruption basically is beaten back.
It was in the 9th Parliament that, at the tail end of it, that after facing those frustrations, we came up with the idea of a committee on implementation.
Yes.
So as to ensure that reports that have been adopted are followed up.
Yes.
From the executive to find out if action as recommended is being taken, and if it isn't, why that is so.
Yes.
Of course, after the adoption of the new constitution now, and particularly in the 11th Parliament, now Parliament now has feels a little more. It has a little more teeth.
Yes.
In that, inappropriate cases, in excess of its oversight role, as I'm sure most Kenyans are now quite alive. Yes. Parliament can even impeach. Yes. But of course, that is a matter that I think should be handled with a lot of care, so that again people must be seen to be applying the law as it is, so that it is not based on whims and caprice of people.
Yes, yes.
But of course, when it comes to people failing to take action as recommended by the House, I think with the new constitution and with the new reformed committees, it is now quite easy that action can be taken better than it was in the past.
In the past, yes. But when I speak, maybe you can comment on the recent issues that have been handled by the committees, like Anglo leasing, the standard gauge railways. Kenyans have seen MPs really enthusiastic to deal with these things. What is your view on how they've been dealt with, and are we making headway?
I have both official thinking and private thinking.
Would you share both official and private possibly?
In that, you see, I personally think that we must be faithful to the principle of separation of powers.
Yes.
The executive
have
a mandate to govern.
Yes.
And we have the mandate also
to
oversight them. In doing the oversight role, we must not also impede the executive and other arms of government, the judiciary. We must allow them to do what they must under the Constitution, and where they go wrong, we point it out.
Yes.
Sometimes it happens that we are going out when nothing really has happened to warrant oversight. If we do that too often, we will be getting into the area of micromanaging the executive.
Yes.
And then, of course, we will have fee and off from our core mandate of also legislating and representation.
Yes.
So it's an area that is very dicey, needs a lot of careful balancing.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pengine tubadilishe lugha kidogo, tuongee lugha ya taifa, kwa sababu kuna wananchi wengi ambao wanaangalia hii program siku ya leo ya Moving the Masses. Bwana Speaker, tumeambiwa mara kwa mara ya kwamba tunapoteza kama bilioni 500 kila mwaka kwa sababu ya ufisadi. Na hii Transparency International walichapisha utafiti yao mwaka wa 2003, wakasema ati Kenya is 136 out of 177 countries, yani tukiweka kwa nchi 177 tuko 136, na tukapatiwa score ya 27 out of 100, yani tuko 27 tukilinganishwa na asilimia 100. Bwana Pielo Lumumba ambaye uketi kwa kiti hiyo alisema hiyo ni D, na akasema he said that was a very poor score. Na Bwana Speaker, nikilinganisha na vile tunavyofanya mambo kama athletics tuseme, ukiangalia Kenyan athletes wana kiwango chao ni kile cha juu kabisa, wanaangalia mbele, wanajiuliza kwa dunia nani anashinda na masaa yake ni ngapi, na wanafanya practice yao, tizi yao, na wanashinda. Lakini tukiwa sasa tuko 136 out of 137, ni kuimanisha tuko nyuma sana kwa mambo ya ufisadi. Kwa nini hatulinganishi vile tunavyokimbia na vile tunavyopigana na kitu kama ufisadi na mambo mengine pia kwa mambo yetu ya kinchi?
Well, hiyo ni ile kwa kimombo tunasema perception.
Perception. Yeah, Transparency International.
Yeah, Transparency International.
Lakini
kwanza niseme hivi.
Ndio.
Haiwezekani kwamba
ndio
katika bajeti ya trilioni 1
ndio
nchi inaweza poteza bilioni 500. Haiwezekani, hiyo nchi itakuwa imeanguka kabisa.
Lakini hiyo imechapishwa na maafisa wa serikali.
Wacha nielezee, kwa sababu unajua
ndio
mkaguzi wa vitabu vya serikali
ndio bwana Speaker,
na ndiye pia huwa anatukagua sisi pia
ndio
kama Parliamentary Service Commission. Akiitisha barua fulani
ndio
ama stakabadhi fulani kutoka kwa maafisa wa serikali, wakati mwingi hawampatii.
Hawampatii.
Wakati wanakosa kumpatia,
ndio
na yeye lazima akamilishe kazi yake ya ukaguzi kwa ule muda ambao umetengwa kwa katiba.
Ndio.
Kwa sababu hajapata zile stakabadhi receipts,
ndio
yeye lazima ataandika hizo, kama elezea hizi pesa zilitumika vipi. Hajapata maelezo yale,
ndio
yeye kwa vitabu, kwa ripoti yake atasema hizo pesa
ndio
hazipatikani, hajui zilitumika wapi.
Ndio.
Lakini mwisho wakati ripoti yake inakuja, inaletwa bunge, inapelekwa kwa kamati kama public accounts ama public investments, wale maafisa, kwa sababu huo ndio wakati wanaamka,
ndio
ni uzembe wale wa maafisa wako nao. Wakifika pale bungeni wanaleta zile marisiti zote
mara moja.
Kwa hivyo, lakini zingine kama vile umeona ripoti zetu pia kule bungeni, zingine kweli tunadhibitisha pesa zinaonekana hazikutumika vizuri.
Ndio.
Ama bei ya vitu imewekwa juu sana, vile tunajua hakika kwa market haiko namna vile.
Ndio.
Hiyo unajua hayo mambo yote sasa yakiangaziwa yote namna hiyo, kwamba bilioni 300, bilioni 500 zimepotea. Sasa katika ile perception,
ndio
lazima tuende kule chini. Hatuwezi kuwekwa pamoja na wale wakimbizi wetu. Wale unajua wale wako mbele kabisa, wako mbele. Lakini kwa hii
ndio,
na ni jukumu la sisi sote ambao tuko na nyadhifa mbalimbali za uongozi, tuhakikishe kwamba yale ambayo yanatakikana, kama ni ulitumia pesa pahali fulani, lazima uweke maelezo ya kwamba hizi zilienda namna hii, zilitumika namna hii. Ndio mkaguzi wa vitabu, Auditor General, akitaka apewe wakati ule unatakiwa, sio baadaye kule bungeni wakati wanaenda kwa kamati. Kwa sababu unaona mara nyingi ripoti ya kamati ikikuja huwa tayari wameleta zile makaratasi, lakini wanatufanyisha kazi ambayo si yetu sisi. hiyo kazi wanatakiwa kuwa ni ya mkaguzi wa vitabu.
Ndio.
So hiyo unajua inachangia pakubwa sana katika yale mambo ya perception, kwa sababu ikisemekana serikali mwaka huu imepoteza bilioni 500, hakika kweli hata mwananchi akiona lazima akasirike zaidi. Hata ukienda kumuuliza wewe unaona namna gani, anasema hii nchi yetu iko na ufisadi mwingi sana.
Na watu kama Transparency International, kwa maoni yako, wanapata haya maneno wapi? Na wanachapisha kama si ukweli, basi wanaichapisha kwa nini?
Hayo sasa vile nimeelezea, hata kama ni mwananchi
ndio
akikutana na mtu amuulize hii nchi yenu kuhusu mambo ya ufisadi, lazima, kwa sababu ameona yale ambayo yamechapishwa na mkaguzi wa vitabu. Kenya serikali mwaka huu ilipoteza pesa kiasi hiki na kile. Ni lazima hata kama ni mimi nikiulizwa nitasema hapa ufisadi umezidi.
Bwana Speaker,
inaleta hiyo ndio inachangia sana ile perception index.
Viewers, this is the program Moving the Masses, and you've just heard the Speaker is telling us how the National Assembly has been watching over, because their role basically is an oversight role over the our finances, over the deliberations that should make sure that corruption basically is finished in Kenya. And we will be back in a few minutes to continue with the Speaker on this same topic. Thank you.
Je, umewahi jiuliza ikiwa hakungekuwa na ufisadi nchini, tungekuwa na manufaa gani? Hebu nikupe taswira kamili. Kila mwaka nchi yetu hupoteza karibu bilioni 400 kutokana na ufisadi. Je, waelewa bilioni 400 ni pesa ngapi? Inamaanisha 4, 0, 0 na nyingine na nyingine tena nyingine hadi jumla ya 11. Ikiwa pesa hizo zingetumika kujenga barabara, tungekuwa na uwezo wa kujenga barabara 14 za kiwango cha Thika Road kote nchini. Na kama zingetumika kujenga hospitali sawa na Mama Lucy Hospital, tungejenga hospitali 700, kumaanisha kila kaunti ingekuwa na hospitali 14. Na kama hizi pesa zingetumika kuwajengea nyumba wasiokuwa na makao, tungejenga nyumba za vyumba vya kulala 3 kuwapa makao familia 200,000. Usalama ungeimarishwa kwa kuwaajiri askari kutokana na hizi pesa. Pesa hizi zaweza kununua unga wa sima pakiti bilioni 3.5 ambazo zina uwezo wa kuwalisha watu wote nchini kwa miezi 6. Tungeweza kununua ng'ombe milioni 3 wa maziwa na milioni 8 wa kuchinjwa kwa nyama, na kuku milioni 800 kumpa kila mtu kuku 20 nchini. Hebu fikiria, si ni ushenzi kuwa na ufahamu huu kisha kuendelea na ufisadi?
Kupigana na ufisadi, jukumu langu. Kupigana na ufisadi ni uungwana. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako kwa hisani ya The National Anti-Corruption Steering Committee ikishirikiana na Uungwana Institute.
Introducing the all-new Chevrolet Trailblazer with 500 Newton-meters of torque, 7 seats, and the capability to go anywhere. With the hands-free function of the advanced MyLink infotainment system with rear-view camera, your family will see the world in a whole new way. Chevrolet Trailblazer. Chevrolet. Find new roads.
Don't just watch the World Cup matches. Place bets and become rich. Simply trust your luck today by placing your bets on any participating team you think will win a particular match during the FIFA 2014 World Cup. Yes, real money. It's easy. SMS game to 21440 or register on our easy to navigate website www.michezochapa.com and win more than 10 times your betting amount. Imagine placing a bet of 100 shillings and winning 1,000 shillings. All winnings are paid instantly, either on your phone or on your bank account. Don't be left behind. SMS game to 21440 or visit www.michezochapa.com and win big. Michezo Chapa, money and more money instantly. Terms and conditions apply.
To download Kereka by DK kwenye beat, SMS a keyword RKA to 22454. SMS RKA to 22454.
Miss Tourism Kenya is back with a national representation of 8 regions from the coast to the Rift Valley, Central Kenya, Eastern, Northeastern, Western, Nyanza to the metropolis Nairobi. For details on how to participate or support the county editions, visit our website misstourismkenya.org or call or SMS 070 45 77 557.
Are you tired and heavy laden? Do you feel like life has overburdened you? Are you facing a difficult period in your life? Be it in your home, at work, or from your family and friends? Are things not working out as you had expected them to? Are you wondering where your help will come from? God knows and has not forgotten about you. Have faith in God. Read Mark chapter 11, verse 22 to 25. You can now get your daily dose of spiritual nourishment on your mobile phone. Just SMS NC to 31010 now and start receiving a daily Bible quote and encouragement messages to help you through your daily spiritual life for only 30 shillings. Remember, send NC to the number 31010 now and experience the power of spiritual nourishment.
Taking pride in constructing tomorrow's skylines. Adding strength to Kenya's landmarks. Presenting the power for specialized constructions. Cementing the nation's future. Simba Cement, the strength and pride of Kenya.
To get this song, Matokeo by Gloria, bonyeza *699 *7#. Remember, to get this song and other best songs, bonyeza *699 *7#.
Game.
Maliza this pressing issue bwana. My boss says kitu yako iko as agreed. How come I never get one of these?
Nyinyi vijana wa siku hizi, cutting corners will run you into trouble.
Yahoo! This is our day, boss. Leo tumeangukia.
Do not give a thought to this, Mshenzi. This is against the rule of law. You cannot triple the cost.
Kitu gani? Boss, did you ask for the money? Did you? Look at it this way. You have to pay school fees, mortgage, chama, the holiday you have been promising your family.
Think about it. How different will you be from that immigration officer who allows illegal immigrants in our country? Some Al-Shabaabs, they end up killing innocent of civilians in terror attacks. or that cop who looks the other way on our roads leading to accidents. But this is different. It's not like that. This is different. Oh, sorry. Now you are talking. Wachana wewe anajifanya mgwana. You are not like those corrupt border people or the traffic police officers. This is you and 10 million. Corruption won't pay in the long run. Thinking about those people you'll save is having human dignity. Thinking about our country is being patriotic. Boss, think about it. Do you really want to let this golden opportunity pass? This is about your values. Do the Ungwana thing and lose 10 million. Boss, that will be stupid. Rise up to your true human spirit. Do the right thing.
Just think about it. Isn't engaging in acts of corruption ushenzi? Fighting corruption, my responsibility. Fighting corruption is uungwana.
Viewers and listeners, welcome back to the program Moving the Masses, brought to you by the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee. This program is aimed at your heart and your minds. It is aimed at getting each and every one of us to stand up against this evil we call corruption. And I would like to also inform you that this program is repeated every Thursday after 9 p.m. Bwana Speaker.
Yes.
Tulikuwa tunaongea juu ya hii pesa ambayo tumepoteza, na umeona hiyo ujumbe kidogo inasema ya kwamba bilioni 400 naweza nunulia kila mtu kuku 20 Kenya. And naweza sema tumesikia vile umetuambia juu ya perceptions, na pengine tungeuliza wale ambao wanachapisha haya basi wachimbe vilivyo ili watupatie mambo ikiwa kikamilifu. Bwana Spika, umekuwa mbunge eneo bunge ya Siakago, na kuna hii fund tunaita Constituency Development Fund, na pia tumeona mara mingi NGO zimechapisha utafiti ya kwamba hizi pesa pengine hazitumiwi vilivyo. Kuna wengi MP wanatumia vizuri, lakini kuna wengi ambao kunasemekana pesa zinafujwa, kunasemekana miradi inaanzishwa haimalizwi, kunasemekana haijengwi vile inavyopaswa kujengwa, kunasemekana wengine wanapatia masapota ama familia zao kandarasi za kufanya. Bwana Spika, sijui wewe maono yako ni magani kulingana na hii CDF, na kwa sababu kwa ile muundo wa CDF Parliament haiwezi hasa kujiangalia ikiwa yeye yenyewe kwa haya mambo ya CDF. Pengine maono yako ni gani, na mnaongea haya maneno mkiwa wabunge ama mnaendesha namna gani?
Asante sana kwa hilo swali kuhusu mambo ya CDF. Ni kweli kunazo sehemu chache ambazo CDF zile pesa za CDF asitumiki vilivyo. Lakini kama kawaida mkaguzi wa vitabu vya serikali ako na jukumu la kuhakikisha kwamba amekagua kila utumishi wa sehemu yoyote ya wakilishi bungeni, ndio hakikisha aone kwamba hakuna pahali pesa zimefujwa. Mengine ni kama yale matatizo ya jambo mpya tu. Kwa sababu Wakenya hapa mara kwa mara huwa tukienda kwa uchaguzi tunatupa wabunge kama asilimia kama 80 hivi. Kwa hivyo wale wanakuja kila baada ya miaka 5 unakuta ni watu wapya. Wakichukua hatamu za uongozi, inaonekana kama kila mtu anataka kufurahisha wale ambao walikuwa masupporters. Na ni kweli, na tumekuwa kama unavyojua tumekuwa tukijaribu kubadilisha ile sheria mara kwa mara. Na ndio mpaka kwa sasa tumeondoa wabunge wa wenye viti wa zile kamati za bunge CDF. Alafu tumehakikisha kwamba zile kamati wananchi wenyewe ndio sasa wanazichagua. Bado siwezi kusema kwamba ati mbunge hana ushawishi wa aina fulani katika ule uchaguzi. Kwa sababu najua inakuwa ni mambo ya siasa kule katika sehemu za wakilishi bungeni. Lakini nia yetu kwa kubadilisha sheria ni kujaribu kuhakikisha kwamba mbunge hawezi kuwa ni yeye atakuwa kama tulipoanza zamani. Ilikuwa mbunge hata unakuta wengine walikuwa wanatembea wamebeba checkbook ya CDF
anaandika check hapo.
Jambo lilikuwa linashangaza sisi wengine, tulikuwa nashindwa vipi kwa sababu mbunge hata wakati ule ilianza hakuwa na haki ya kuwa ni yeye anatembea na checkbook. Lakini kwa sababu ilikuwa jambo mpya, bado tumekuwa tukiendelea kujaribu kuweka nat kuhakikisha kwamba ule utumishi wa zile pesa za CDF unalingana na matakwa na mahitaji ya wale ambao ni wenyeji wa sehemu zile, na kulingana na yule kamati zile za kule za kuwa zimezungumzia wananchi. Wanatakiwa kutembea wajaribu kuuliza pia kila pembe ya constituency ni miradi gani mungetaka tuwafanyie, ndio waweze kufanya ile tunaita kwa kimombo prioritization. Hiyo kama tukisema kwa ujumla, hiyo ndio vinatakiwa. Lakini tunajua sehemu hapa na pale kumekuwa na matatizo hapa na pale.
Ndio, na wananchi wanauliza mara mingi ni kwa nini hakuna mbunge yoyote ambaye ameadhibiwa.
Well, unajua mambo ya kuadhibu hiyo ni mambo ya wale mkaguzi wa serikali wa vitabu vya serikali, kamati ya kupigana na ufisadi. Hao ndio wanatakiwa kuingilia yale maneno. Alafu mambo ikipelekwa kotini, tuko na shinda kidogo kwa kesi zikifika kotini, hata mimi nashindwa mbona kesi inakaa namna hivi.
Kwa hivyo mahakama ina shida hapa na pale.
Hapo tunatakiwa pia kuangazia kesi, hata kama ni yangu, kama ni mimi nimepelekwa kotini, hiharakisho ndio wananchi waone kama kweli haki imetendeka. Kama niko na hatia niadhibiwe vilivyo, kama sina pia niachiliwe, ndio niweze kuendelea na shughuli na kazi zangu.
Bwana Spika, wananchi na wengi wanasikiliza hata kwa redio, kwa sababu hii program iko kwa Radio Taifa ya KBC. Wana jukumu la kupigana na hili janga la ufisadi. Lakini mara mingi Bwana Spika, sijui pengine hata sisi wananchi tuna shida kidogo. Mara mingi nyinyi mkiwa especially wanasiasa mkienda kule mashinani, unasikia mwananchi akisema mkono mtupu haulamu. Anataka kupatiwa kitu kidogo, anakuja kwako asubuhi, pengine anataka school fees umlipie, pengine anataka haya maneno yote tunajua ambayo tunawasukumia viongozi hasa wabunge. Nilikuwa nikiongea na mbunge fulani aliniambia ati kama yeye hana kama 300,000 mfukoni haendi kwa constituency. Mwingine akaniambia kwa sababu nyumba yake imejengwa kwa mlima haingii huko kabla haijafika saa 9 ya usiku, kwa sababu mataa watu wakiona mataa wamejaa hapo asubuhi na kile wanataka ni pesa. Je, Bwana Spika, tabia kama hizi, tabia zingine miuzita za kishenzi zinawazisha wabunge pengine kutafuta mapesa kwa njia ya ufisadi ili waweze kutimiza matakwa haya hii kusukumwa na wananchi. Na je, tunawezaje kumaliza hizi tabia ambazo zinachangia kwa njia tofauti kwa hii ukuzaji wa ufisadi?
Nataka kusema kwamba ile tunaita awareness kuhusu mambo ya ufisadi katika wananchi wetu iko chini sana. Mpaka imefika kiwango kwamba mwananchi mpigaji kura akimwona mtu yeyote ambaye anataka kusimama kiti, wanajua ni wakati wa
hata wanaanza kumuita mheshimiwa.
Ndio. Na ametangaza tu kidogo akasema nafikiria.
Ndio.
Naambiwa basi wewe unatosha.
Ndio.
Na naambiwa umetosha kwa sababu watu wanataka aanze kutoa pesa.
Ndio.
Niseme hii awareness kama ile nimeona pale.
Yes.
Kama Wakenya wanaweza kuwa kila mara maneno ya wanapatiwa kila wakati. Ndio wajue mbunge mkimchagua sio haja kuwa ATM. Ati ndiye atakulipia karo za shule, mtu mgonjwa, kwa sababu ukifanya hivyo sasa yule na mnajua kama mshahara yake vile iko. Ndio. Utaona wabunge wengine waendi kuhudumia wananchi.
Ndio.
Wanakosa kwa sababu wanajua akienda kule bila pesa hakuna mtu atamzungumzia. Kila mmoja akija kwako ataka pesa.
Bwana Spika, kuna mheshimiwa mwingine alikuwa naenda constituency na shati imeandikwa I am not an ATM.
Wajua hata hiyo ni jambo mzuri.
Ndio.
Lakini najua akitembea ina depend na sehemu gani.
Ndio.
Lakini vile mimi nimetembea nchi hii yetu. Kila kona nikitembea unakuta ni kama wananchi wanaona wewe ukiwa kwa uongozi ni lazima uwe na pesa ya kupitia watu tu bure hivi. Mpaka inanishangaza nashindwa watu wanafikiri mtu kiongozi atatoa pesa wapi ya kupeana tu kila ukitembea pahali mheshimiwa unasimamishwa, wewe ni wetu, hata hujui ni nani. Hata hapa Nairobi hii
ndio
hata wakati mimi sikuwa bunge nikiwa kwa ile CMD kutoka kwa ofisi mheshimiwa wewe ni wetu, nashindwa nimekuwa wetu na mwishowe ukimwona anakuambia unakuja tuone hapa.
Ndio.
Ukienda kuongea unafikiri ni jambo muhimu unaenda kuzungumza pesa. Unashindwa sasa wewe wanafikiria utatoa pesa wapi ya kupatia kila mtu ukikutana naye kwa barabara.
Wananchi mumesikia. Ati tabia zetu zingine zinachangia kufanya kazi ya mbunge iwe na ugumu kabisa. Na pengine saa ingine hata pengine Speaker hakusema hivyo, lakini lazima mtu atafute pesa, na pengine inachangia Speaker kwa mambo ya corruption, kwa sababu kama wanataka si lazima utafute. Kwa hivyo tukiwa wananchi lazima hata sisi tujiangazie sisi wenyewe, na ndivyo hii program ya Moving the Masses inayoleta kwenyu na National Anti-Corruption Steering Committee inataka kutukuza kila mmoja wetu katika roho yetu na katika fikira zetu. Tujaze kujiuliza yale maswali muhimu, maswali ambayo itatuwezesha kupigana na hili janga janga la ufisadi. Na ningependa kuwakumbusha ya kwamba hii program hurudiwa kila Tuesday saa 3:45 in the evening. Bwana Speaker, mambo ya campaign financing, pesa mingi sana hutumiwa na wabunge, pengine mabilioni ya mashilingi. Na hapo mbeleni kwa hiyo parliament iliyopita tulikuwa tumeweka kiwango tukasema ni 40,000, lakini nafikiri kwa wakati hii katiba mpya ilikuja hiyo iliondolewa na watu hutumia pesa mingi sana. Je, kwa maono yako hiyo inachangia ufisadi au inaendesha demokrasia?
Hiyo inachangia sana. Pakubwa sana. Kwa mambo ya ufisadi. Niseme kwanza hivi, kama wale ambao tunaenda kuomba kutumikia wananchi hasa katika bunge za taifa na hata zile za county, kama tutaingia katika uongozi kwa kuwahonga wananchi, ni lazima wananchi wajue basi
lazima utafute hiyo pesa.
Kama anajua ni lazima akuhonge, na yeye pia lazima atatafuta pahali ya kwenda kuhongwa.
Ndio.
Ni lazima. Kwa hivyo tukiipata vibaya, kwa kimombo tunasema if you get it wrong at the political level, you can never hope to get it, to make it. You can never have a clean government. Because you have the method of ascending to authority, to power, has been a corrupt one. Kwa hivyo kama wananchi ni jukumu letu, na hasa wale vyombo vya habari, tujaribu kueneza hii injili, mambo ya tafadhali tuache mambo ya ufisadi.
Thank you, Bwana Speaker. And viewers, you've heard the views of the Speaker that even as citizens, we contribute largely to the growth of this beast we call corruption. Indeed, it has been said that people get the leader they deserve. In the House, we have an audience, and I would like to turn now to my good audience and ask them to make a contribution, to give us our views on what they think about the question of corruption, and indeed to ask the good Speaker a few questions as to how the National Assembly is addressing the question of corruption in Kenya. Who will go first? Can I have the Reverend, please, the good Reverend?
Thank you. Been called good speaker. You're really good. My name is Ibrahim Omondi. I work for National Anti-Corruption. Now, in the previous parliaments, we've had situations, and the Kenyans have been complaining about these parliamentarians who go to parliament to raise their salaries. I know you are not planning to do that. Au kuna mpango kama hiyo utuambie hapa sasa. Thank you.
Can we have another question, maybe from the young gentleman? Yes.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Eliud Choge. I'm a scholar at KCA University. I have two quick questions. The first one is, you've told us what prompted you to start this fight against corruption was the negligence that you saw that people used to handle public resources. So from your own view, where have we reached? Because you've started all this campaign as an individual from a very long time. So from your own perspective, where have we reached as Kenyans in the fight against corruption? And the second one is, what is your comment on how we can also nurture the younger generation? Because this is actually a societal problem. How can we nurture the younger generation to actually have a different perspective in regards to corruption? Thank you.
Maybe, Bwana Speaker, we can answer that just ahead of the break that we will take shortly.
Very well. I want to respond to reference question by saying, of course, after the passage of the new constitution, matters to do with salaries for state officers are now handled by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, headed by Madam Sarah Serem. And it's not possible that parliamentarians. Remember last year I was under tremendous pressure in my capacity as the chairman of the Parliamentary Service Commission when members came and started complaining that the salary they were getting is too low. But I had to stay the course and insist we must follow what the Constitution has provided. SRC, no shortcut. And they stayed for about 3 months without getting salaries because they were also very determined to see whether they could push me to accepting to do that. I refused. So there's no plan. There's no plan, and even if anybody was planning, it will not be possible because constitutionally it cannot be permitted. I think we have made some strides in the fight against corruption, but I think the greatest achievement is what is contained in our new constitution. The various institutions, the commissions on administrative justice, anti-corruption, and the creation of the various independent offices, all of which are independent and they are not expected to be influenced by anybody or any authority in the performance and the due execution of their duties and mandates. We are not yet there. I will be deceiving myself to tell you that we have reached. We haven't. And I think we must continue with the fight. Immediately I joined Parliament in the 8th Parliament. We formed what we call African Parliamentarian Network Against Corruption, APNAC. I still continue to support, even though now I'm not active given my new responsibilities, but I encourage new members, particularly the new ones, to come. Every time I keep telling them this organization does this, it helps in the fight against corruption. I am doing that, but that is really at a personal level. But I do know that as Parliament, we are making some strides, but we still have a lot to do. With regard to the younger generation,
I think the messages such as the ones that I have seen here, we need to have many more of those ones. Let us begin at the lowest level in the classroom, primary schools. Let us begin to inculcate the culture of respect for public resources and public funds. Any misuse of public resources leads to the various ills that we are saying: lack of hospitals, lack of good roads, lack of electricity connectivity, very many examples that we can do. I think we need to take the message to the lowest level in our learning institutions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Viewers and listeners, I would like to remind you that this program is repeated on Tuesdays at 9:45 every week. Now, let us go back to the audience, and I would like to take a few more questions. And please, let's keep them short so that we can pack up a good bunch. But, Corinne.
My name is Mark Korir from Anti-Corruption Association of Citizens Against Corruption. My question is, when you look at the CDF Act, this year it has undergone 2 changes. When you look at the anchoring of CDF itself, to me, and according to the Constitution, is unconstitutional, because Parliament's role is only oversight and legislation. Now, you realize that members of Parliament, when they are allocating themselves, this year, the budget, they've given themselves approximately 28 billion. This 28 billion, they are going to oversight themselves. Now, what is the role? Where will the Mwananchi, where will they run to? Having in mind that in Parliament, we have a committee known as Parliament Select Committee on CDF. The chair is Lesonet, my Honorable Lesonet. Now, when it comes to corruption, I've had an opportunity of going around the country and do audits. It is basic. MPs run everything from the grassroots up here. And when it comes to presenting reports, they'll make sure that it is killed before it gets anywhere. Now, what are we going to do to get rid of this CDF, go back? Because when you look at the counties, they are getting their their percentages from the allocation at the Constitution, by the Constitution. Lastly, you realize that the allocation, I want to ask, Mr. Speaker, sir, can you talk to members of Parliament so that constitutional commissions like commissions like the Anti-Corruption Commission could be given powers to prosecute?
Thank you, Bwana Korir. Thank you. I'll just take one more. Somebody from the back? I think the gentleman, no, the lady. Let us have the lady. Let us have the lady. Lazima tutimize matakwa ya katiba, sio? A lady, please. The lady who's standing over there. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to ask, who do you think is the biggest player in promotion of corruption in Kenya? Is it the citizens, or is it in the other part of the Parliament?
Could you tell us your name, please?
My name is Jacqueline Waithaka from Multimedia University of Kenya.
Let me start with the one of the CDF. I have, like I said earlier on, I have my own personal views about this, because devolution is now anchored in our Constitution. When I was in Parliament, when we came up with the idea of CDF, it was to address the myriad of problems that members of Parliament find themselves faced with whenever they go to the constituencies, having to address matters to do with development. But of course, it is a devolved fund. So I would want to leave the interpretation to those who are expected to do so. That is the judiciary. So let me not proffer an opinion. As you know, the matter is actually in court. So I think it is good that we wait for the interpretation by the courts. Which means then, again, I mean, it may be a bit premature for me to say that members oversight themselves. I would rather that the court makes that determination as to whether they actually do so or not. But of course, they also do the work of representation. There is prosecutorial powers to EACC. I think there is merit in that. It's a matter that we can actively engage in. Jacqueline, we all contribute. I do not think that it is fair for me to sit here and start apportioning blame. If there is this great perception of corruption, we all have played some part.
Thank you, Bwana Speaker. And maybe in a very short, in less than a minute, could you just quickly give us your last comments in the way of just showing us what clear indicators we would see to show that the National Assembly is doing what it's supposed to do, and secondly, how you would link the anti-corruption initiatives to the national values in Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya?
Well, in the work that Parliament does, oversighting, representation, and the kind of laws that we come up with, that is the greatest. And of course, the reports that come from watchdog committees, they will show how we perceive the values articulated in Article 10 of the Constitution. Indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Viewers, that brings us to the end of this program. And we would like to thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for sharing with Kenyans what the National Assembly is doing. And indeed, we would like to say, on behalf of the National Anti-Corruption Steering Committee, whose members are in the House today, that we are in the space to help the National Assembly kwa hali na mali, kama wanavyosema Waswahili, to ensure that this beast of corruption is laid. Till next time, viewers, please continue fighting the war against corruption, and we hope this program has touched your hearts and your minds, and that you'll be engaged in any and every way that you can be able to fight this war against corruption. Thank you.
Who looks the other way on our roads leading to accidents. But this is different. It's not like that. This is different. Oh, sorry. Now you are talking. Achana wewe anajifanya mgwana. You are not like those corrupt border people or the traffic police officers. This is you and 10 million. Corruption won't pay in the long run. Thinking about those people you'll save is having human dignity. Thinking about our country is being patriotic. Boss, think about it. Do you really want to let this golden opportunity pass? This is about your values. Do the Ungwana thing and lose 10 million. Boss, that will be stupid. Rise up to your true human spirit. Do the right thing.
Just think about it. Isn't engaging in acts of corruption ushenzi? Fighting corruption, my responsibility. Fighting corruption is uungwana. This message has been brought to you courtesy of the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee.
The UN Convention says it is evil. The African Convention says it is evil. Our own laws, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Act, says it is evil. We condemn it in churches and mosques and temples on a daily basis, but we engage in it. What is the problem?
Well, thank you very much, Prof, for having me here. And I agree with you that there is no single Kenyan who does not know that corruption is evil. And that is why that many of those who engage in it will do it under the table, in dark spaces, and they would not want to come out into the open and claim that they have engaged in it. Yet we know every day that it is happening. We know it is being done by our parents, our brothers or sisters, our children, our grandparents, and we continue to sink deeper as a country in this problem. But I think for us to move forward, we have to acknowledge first and foremost that this is an important matter that the public ought to have a firm say on. And secondly, remember that the standards that a country espouses are the standards that the public sets. If our leaders or anybody in this society is engaged in corruption, it is because we have tolerated it. If we, as a member of the public, were to stand up and say no, and demand action where corruption has taken place, we would move this country in a positive direction.
Samuel, there is one thing that you and me know, having been practitioners in the fight against corruption, is that one of the major mandates of anti-corruption bodies is education.
That's right.
And this has been undertaken. Your own organization, Transparency International, is familiar with this. You do your surveys. Is there a single thing that you can identify as the magic bullet, which, if released, can make the public participate positively in the fight against corruption?
I don't think there's a silver bullet, but there are a combination of factors that if we would put them in place, we would influence the fight positively. The Kenyan public is looks a bit powerless now because corruption has taken place, and we have institutions that have the responsibility of holding people to account. But that has not permeated in our society. We have too many cases of corruption that go unpunished, too many cases where we are told who did not do what, but are never told who did what. So we have a lot of scandals that the list continues to grow without any solutions being found. If we were to chart a new path where people are being held to account, both administratively and also legally, judicially, so to speak, we would energize the public to come out more strongly. The reason the public has become muted on this matter is because there are a significant number of Kenyans who feel that they are helpless in light of the ineffectiveness of the institutions that are there to fight corruption.
I hear you, and the viewers and listeners hear you. In the minds of your typical Kenyan, corruption is Anglo-leasing, is Goldenberg, is Triton. Yet in my view, corruption is as simple as giving a 5-shilling bribe to a police officer or the police officer taking it. Do you think that corruption has now become a national culture, that people don't even recognize it when it sits on their laps?
Prof, I think Kenyans recognize corruption, whether it is bribery, whether it is corruption that involves procurement malpractice, they recognize it. I think the only aspect of corruption that is still, according to studies, not very well understood and appreciated is the conflict of interest aspect. But the idea of influencing or abusing power or entrusted power for private gain is something that is appreciated and is understood in its manifestations by many Kenyans. I think the problem is that we, as I said, we've not charted a path where we hold people to account. And there are many Kenyans who would want not to participate in this corruption, bribery, which is the most prevalent, especially in service delivery. But I've have no support system. They feel they don't have a support system to be able to resist that kind of entreaties.
If today the President of the Republic of Kenya were to appoint you as his chief advisor in the fight against corruption, and his specific question, how do I get my Kenyan people to help me in the fight against corruption? What are the three things you would tell the President to do?
Well, one is to ask him to get our institutions to do their work. And having got an institution to do their work with all the necessary resources that are required to do it, I would ask him to lead the fight from the front. And this does not mean just pointing out at people who are engaged in corruption or are suspected of being engaged in corruption. I think there is a big benefit, a low-hanging fruit that we can pluck, and that is using the administrative processes that exist whenever these issues come up. And this doesn't mean that you take action against people by way of victimizing them. It is just by way of ensuring that there is confidence that is given to institutions that if an allegation has been made, before it is verified or not, it is proper for the holder of an office, of a position, to vacate that office, awaiting clearance as the law has provided. If that were to happen, and it is in keeping with the law, we would make some steps. Then I would say the second thing is to ensure that we have effective complaints handling mechanisms across the public sector. We should not leave the fight against corruption to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee. We should ensure that everybody is involved in the fight against corruption, because corruption takes place in all spaces that we have. If we create effective complaints handling mechanisms where Kenyans know if you report a corruption experience, that action is going to be taken, then we will be moving closer to making progress. The third one is just to encourage Kenyans to come forward and report corruption. I would say that I would ask the President to speak to the people of Kenya consistently and eloquently about them coming out and denouncing corruption whenever and wherever they encounter it, making reports to the necessary authorities, and also speaking to one another to desist from engaging in corruption, knowing very well that it has very deleterious effects on our society.
Yesterday, the day before yesterday, I was at the airport in Dar es Salaam, and a loader told me, "You are going to Nairobi." He thought I was Tanzanian. "Oh, your goods will be stolen." That defines the attitude of some people about Kenyans. Do you think that our tolerance for corruption is so high that we have lost the battle?
Prof, our tolerance for corruption is very high. And that is why when corruption issues come up, we more or less just window dress them and do not go to the root of the matter. And I say this with a lot of empirical data that you can look at of cases where corruption has taken place, but there is no conclusive action on that. Indeed, you will find a few cases that I can enumerate where people have been punished outside this country for engaging in corruption in Kenya, but have never been punished here. And there is even no investigations going on in this country. So I think we have not lost the fight. I think to give up would be to give up on this country. For corruption is from our perspective, is the biggest challenge that this country faces. It ties together all the challenges that we can face now, even the very foremost of security is, in my view, at the base of it is corruption. So we cannot give up on it, and I cannot say that we have lost the fight. We cannot afford to lose the fight.
There is some lady somewhere in Taita Taveta who is listening to us, another one in Migori, in Nyanza, and Mukureine, and they are asking, these people in Nairobi sitting and telling us to fight corruption, what are the specific things that I should do when I go to a hospital in Nyeri, for example, or Taita Taveta and Migori, and do? when I see a doctor prescribing medicine which I then buy in his pharmacy in town, complete with GOK mark?
Well, the fight against corruption has to be a very personal fight. And I think the people who suffer most from corruption are the kind that you've just described. People who every day are coming into public offices to seek for services and who cannot afford those services outside the public space. And those people have the greatest stake in ensuring that the fight against corruption moves forward. What they can do is to make a complaint on those issues. One is institutions have processes through which you can complain. Secondly is to seek the help of entities or institutions that have been set up at the national level that have a mandate to fight corruption. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is one of them, but there is also the Commission on Administrative Justice. And there are also other organizations that are non-governmental, such as ourselves, who will be able to take up whatever complaints or feedback we get and give them the gravitas that is required for action to be taken. So I would advise them not to keep quiet and feel desolate. They should take action and report. And let them not say that their small action will not make any difference. It will make a lot of difference if everybody who encounters malpractice in our public spaces reports. And I have seen in the last 1 year a few cases that I can also list where citizens have raised issues. In fact, two of them involved hospitals, public hospitals, and action has been taken because of the persistence of citizens in voicing their concerns about the way these two hospitals were being run.
Let's look at the question of ethnicity, which is a fact in this country. And I speak from some little experience about ethnicity, that there is a sense in which members of the public will protect their own simply because they are their own. And when they are confronted with prosecution, they'll come and gravitate in protection around them. What would be your advice to the Kenyan public as they fight corruption, taking into account what I've just said?
Well, ethnicity is a big challenge in this country, and I think the fight against corruption has suffered setbacks because of ethnicity. But it is important for the Kenyan public to realize that a thief is a thief, and a thief is to be dealt with in accordance with the law, and that thief could be your own brother, your own sister, it could be your own father. And therefore, if this country is to move forward, then as a country under the rule of law, because it is the rule of law that protects all of us and protects our interests. For if we were to cut down all the laws that are in place, we would have anarchy, and in times of need, we will not be able to be protected. So the state, the machinery that the state has to protect us is through the law. So we must let the law take its course, and we must remember that whether it is your brother or your sister who is engaging in corruption, the impact is both on you and others who are not even within that family setup. It is important that the Kenyan public take up the fight against corruption seriously and as a fight for the continued existence and integrity of this country.
We'll come back to what I call the Mwizi Wetu syndrome later in the program. But I want to talk about corruption in the political arena. There are those who now believe that in Africa and countries, many of them, including Kenya, the thing we call corruption is, rather election is not an election, it's an auction. And the highest bidder is then purportedly elected by the public. What would you advise the Kenyan electorate? Because the original sin is committed at the point of electioneering when you are bought to vote, and then once you've been bought, then the buyer recoups his investment. What would be advised to the Kenyan public?
Well, Prof, it has been said that people get the leadership they deserve. And I think if we are not careful and we elect leaders who have questionable records, we will bear the consequences. And I think that is something that is being apparent in our system. There is way too much money that is spent in bribing voters, and our institutions, including the public itself, find itself at a loss. I have spoken to members of parliament and recently members of the county assemblies on this issue. And they always tell me, show us the way, show us how it is possible to get the public not to ask us for money. And we will be happy not to give that money. In the election, in the last elections, we engaged in a very vigorous campaign to tell the members of the public that we have ordained for ourselves a constitution that has set certain standards of integrity for leadership. And that the first sieve is actually the ballot. If we go and cast a ballot for somebody who we know is a thief, Prof, the truth is, for many of our people who steal public funds, the people who vote for them actually know that they have stolen public funds. We will be helping such people perpetuate corruption to a level where, if we are not careful, then this country will get to a level where it will be captured by criminal elites who are just interested in the rent that comes out of auctioning this country.
We hear you, Samuel. The saying goes that in Africa we elect the big thieves into public office and hang the small ones. Let us now hear from the audience here, as representatives of members of the public, what do? We know it is a sin, we talk about and against it, but we participate in it. We have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of both God and this country. What do we do? Do I have anybody? Yes, please. Your name, of course.
Okay. My name is Moses Uriat from KCA University. From my opinion, I believe that in order to curb out corruption, as you have said, corruption is taking place under in most cases, corruption takes place underground, where the public doesn't see. So I believe that corruption can be rooted when those people who experience corruption come out and report the cases so that it can be carved out. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that intervention. Any other question, please?
My name is Eliud Choge from KCA as well. One thing I'd like to pose a comment and also a question to our guest today is that at the grassroots, you've said that one of the ways we can stamp out corruption is by increasing public participation. But I believe that most people, it's not that Kenyans, there are people who can't voice out that there's corruption. But those few who are willing to voice it out are actually, there's low incentive for them to do so. So that you find that the big fish outweigh the small ones who actually want to fight them. So I'd like to ask our director from Transparency International, what effort are they doing that is actually visible on the grassroots? And also what, from him, what is their biggest achievement thus far in the fight against corruption? Thank you.
Samuel, of course, that you will say is normally the wrong question. That what have they done? The right question is, what are you doing? But it's not me who is on the chair today.
Well, Prof, I do agree with you, but what I would say is that Transparency International Kenya is just like other civil society organizations that are working in this area, is a facilitator. Our work is to support the public. Our work is to energize the fight against corruption by educating the public and showing them where to report, and sometimes even holding their hands and taking them where they need to go so that their complaints can be heard. you would agree with me that it's a fairly small contribution, because the fight against corruption is a fight for me and you. It's a fight for the public. So we should desist from looking at it as a fight for Transparency International Kenya, or a fight for Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, or even our institution, or even the president himself. We should see it as a fight that we have to engage in, all of us.
Thank you very much, viewers. Today our visitor is Samuel Kimeu, the Director of Transparency International. And the question we are posing to you, viewers and listeners, what is your role in the fight against corruption? How can we allow our country to be infamous for being one of the most corrupt nations on earth? We must remember that corruption affects all of us. When we come back, we will ask Mr. Kimeu and members of the audience here, what are the practical things that we must now do, particularly in the context of devolution, which in the minds of some has devolved corruption? We will be with you in a short while.
He's my defender.
To get this song, Defender by Daddy Owen, bonyeza *699 *7#. Remember, to get this song and other best songs, bonyeza *699 *7#.
Taking pride in constructing tomorrow's skylines. Adding strength to Kenya's landmarks. Presenting the power for specialized constructions. Cementing the nation's future. Simba Cement, the strength and pride of Kenya.
SMS KN to 31010 to download your favorite music. Remember, SMS KN to 31010. Terms and conditions apply.
Nataka machungwa.
Subiri tu kidogo analetwa.
Nachelewa.
Nini wewe? Machungwa yako wapi? Enda ukalete machungwa, customer anachelewa.
Madhe, kuna vile tumabega tunaniuma kiasi.
Shika hii kaluma yangu.
Kaluma Pain Balm ni dawa ya kusugua iliyotengenezwa kutoka kwa miche maalum ili kutuliza maumivu ya misuli. Kaluma Pain Balm. Maumivu ya kizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
We, kaluma yangu.
Mimi nataka ushirika na wewe. Ewe roho, mimi nataka ushirika na wewe.
Je, umechoka kuzongwa na mawazo? Je, unahisi kama maisha yanaanza kukulemea? Una shida zinazokukabidhi katika maisha yako, katika nyumba yako, katika familia ama kazi yako? Je, mambo hayakuendei vizuri kama ulivyotarajia? Unashindwa utapata usaidizi wako wapi? Mungu anajua na haja kusahau kamwe. Weke imani kwa Mwenyezi Mungu. Sasa unaweza kupata jumbe na nukuu za Biblia zitakazo kuwezesha kuimarisha imani yako kupitia simu yako ya mkononi. Tuma ujumbe mfupi wenye neno NC kwa nambari 31010. Kumbuka ni neno NC. Utume kama SMS kwa nambari 31010 ili upate kujijenga kimawazo, kujiboresha kwa imani na kujiwezesha kwa nguvu za maombi. Tuma neno NC kwa 31010 sasa. Pata nguvu za neno na imani za nafsi.
Game.
Je, umewahi jiuliza ikiwa hakungekuwa na ufisadi nchini, tungekuwa na manufaa gani? Hebu nikupe taswira kamili. Kila mwaka nchi yetu hupoteza karibu bilioni 400 kutokana na ufisadi. Je, waelewa bilioni 400 ni pesa ngapi? Inamaanisha 4, 0, 0 na nyingine na nyingine tena nyingine hadi jumla ya 011. Ikiwa pesa hizo zingetumika kujenga barabara, tungekuwa na uwezo wa kujenga barabara 14 za kiwango cha Thika Road kote nchini. Na kama zingetumika kujenga hospitali sawa na Mama Lucy Hospital, tungejenga hospitali 700, kumaanisha kila kaunti ingekuwa na hospitali 14. Na kama hizi pesa zingetumika kuwajengea nyumba wasiokuwa na makao, tungejenga nyumba za vyumba vya kulala 3 kuwapa makao familia 200,000. Usalama ungeimarishwa kwa kuwaajiri askari kutokana na hizi pesa. Pesa hizi zaweza kununua unga wa sima pakiti bilioni 3.5 ambazo zina uwezo wa kuwalisha watu wote nchini kwa miezi 6. Tungeweza kununua ng'ombe milioni 3 wa maziwa na milioni 8 wa kuchinjwa kwa nyama, na kuku milioni 800 kumpa kila mtu kuku 20 nchini. Hebu fikiria, si ni ushenzi kuwa na ufahamu huu kisha kuendelea na ufisadi?
Kupigana na ufisadi, jukumu langu. Kupigana na ufisadi ni ungwana. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako kwa hisani ya The National Anti-Corruption Steering Committee ikishirikiana na Uungwana Institute.
Watazamaji na wasikilizaji, mmesikia athari za ufisadi. Hii leo tunaendelea na kipindi hiki ambacho lengo lake ni kuhamasisha umma dhidi ya vita dhidi ya ufisadi, na mgeni wetu hii leo ni Bwana Samuel Kimeu ambaye ni mkurugenzi wa taasisi ya kimataifa inayoshughulika na mambo ya uwajibikaji. Swali tunaloliangazia hii leo ni jukumu la mwananchi, yani wewe, katika vita dhidi ya ufisadi. Na Bwana Kimeu, umeona tangazo hilo. Athari za ufisadi ni athari ambazo zinaeleweka, zinajulikana. Na swali ambalo lazima tuliulize, je, katika bara hili la Afrika kuna mifano ya mataifa ambayo yalikuwa katika jangwa la ufisadi na imejinasua kutoka kwa minyororo hiyo na sasa wameshika mkondo sawa?
Naam, naweza kuzungumzia nchi kama 2 hivi ambazo zimekuwa mfano mwema kwa mambo ambayo yanaweza kufanyika kukiwa na uongozi ambao unazingatia vita dhidi ya ufisadi. La kwanza ni Rwanda ambayo iko karibu na sisi na ambayo ni mwanachama wa Jumuiya ya Mashariki. Na ukienda Rwanda utakuta kwamba watu wa Wanyarwanda wanakubali kwamba ufisadi ni jambo ambalo halikubaliki. na hili ni jambo ambalo halikubaliki katika maafisi ya umma, ni jambo halikubaliki hata katika ngazi za juu za uongozi. Na ikiwa utajiingiza katika ufisadi katika hiyo nchi, utapata kwamba utashtakiwa na utaweza kuhukumiwa. Kwa hivyo hiyo ni nchi moja. Nchi ingine naweza kuzungumzia ni Botswana, ambayo imekuwa ikifanya vizuri katika ule utafiti ambao tumefanya na mashirika mengine yamefanya. Nao wamefanya juhudi hii kupitia kwanza kuhamasisha wananchi, lakini pia kuweza kuona kwamba wale ambao wanajiingiza katika ufisadi wanachukuliwa hatua za kisheria. Kuna Mauritius pia ambayo nafikiri imepiga hatua kubwa katika miaka ya hivi karibuni kuona kwamba ufisadi umepungua, na ukiangalia katika zile standards of living utaona the development indicators ambazo Umoja wa Mataifa huu unatumia, utaona kwamba Mauritius iko na zile za juu zaidi katika Afrika nzima. Kwa hivyo hizi ni nchi tatu ambazo zimepiga hatua na ambazo zinaweza kuwa mfano mwema kwetu kama Kenya.
Kwa hivyo kile ambacho nawaambia watazamaji na wasikilizaji ni kwamba inawezekana katika bara la Afrika.
Naam, inawezekana.
Je, hebu tuliangazie swala hili la ugatuzi. Sasa unavyojua kuna magavana na magavana hawa wakiwasili kokote wanaingia na mbwembwe na ving'ora ili mradi fedha zimeshuka. Lakini tayari kuna malalamiko. Kwa mtazamo wako, ni kitu kipi au vitu vipi wananchi wa gatuzi hizi wafanye kuhakikisha kwamba ufisadi au kiti mizizi katika gatuzi hizi 47?
Mwananchi ana jukumu la kina kabisa kuona kwamba ufisadi haujakita mizizi katika akaunti zetu. Na sheria, katiba ikiwepo na sheria ambazo tumebuni hivi majuzi kuweza kusapoti ule ugatuzi, zimetoa nafasi nzuri sana kwa mwenye nchi kuweza kuona kwamba ufisadi haujaenea katika counties. Jambo la kwanza ni juu ya mipangilio ya maendeleo, kwamba sheria imempa mwananchi nafasi ya kuweza kusikilizwa na kuweza kujadiliana na viongozi katika counties kuona kwamba yale ama zile priorities za maendeleo ambazo zinafuatiliwa, sauti yake imesikika. Kusema kwamba miradi ambayo ni ya viongozi haina nafasi katika hii Kenya yetu. Nafasi ile iliyoko ni masuala ambao wananchi wamesema ni muhimu kuweza kuinua maisha yao. Jambo la pili ni kwamba mipangilio inapotambulika sasa, ni kwamba lazima kuna ule mpangilio wa kuona kwamba hela zimetengwa, ile budgeting process. Na huo ni mpangilio ambao pia mwananchi ako na jukumu la kina ambalo anahitaji ajihusishe nalo. Na ni jambo ambalo nafikiria wananchi kadhaa ama kiwango kiasi ya wananchi wamejitokeza na kuweza kuona kwamba wameuliza maswali ambayo yanahitaji kuulizwa. Hivi majuzi tumeona katika kaunti zingine wananchi wanauliza maswali juu ya bajeti ya mwaka uliopita, wakizungumzia juu ya bajeti ya mwaka huu. Ni jambo la kuridhisha kuona kwamba wananchi wanajitokeza. Lakini ukiangalia katika utafiti ambao tumefanya hivi majuzi, utakuta kwamba ni asilimia ni asilimia 17 peke yake ya wananchi ambao walijitokeza. Walisikia kwamba kuna mikutano ya kujadili juu ya bajeti na planning process na wakajitokeza. Wengine walisikia lakini hawakujitokeza. Utapata kwamba kuna idadi kubwa ambao hawakuweza kujitokeza. Nikimalizia, jambo lingine ambao wananchi wanapaswa wafanye ni kuona kwamba ile mipangilio ambayo imewekwa katika kaunti ya maendeleo na hela zikatengwa, kwamba hizo hela zimetumika kwa njia ambayo inafaa. Na kuna zana ambazo wananchi wanaweza kutumia kuweza kutekeleza mambo kama haya. Ya kwanza ni ile tunaita social audits, ambao wanaweza kuangalia kama yale mambo ambayo yamewekwa katika mikakati ya maendeleo yamefanyika kwa njia ambayo ilitiwa ama iliwekwa. Kama hiyo haitawezekana, wao wanaweza kutoa malalamishi yao kwa taasisi ambazo ni husika, aidha kwa county ama at the national level. Kwa hivyo utakuta kwamba kuna majukumu ya wao kuweza kushiriki katika mikakati ya kupanga mipango ya county na pia kuona kwamba hela zinatumika kwa njia ambayo inafaa.
Tunakuelewa vema. Hebu na sisi ambao tuko hapa, hasa katika vijana, kuna vijana wengi tu ambao wako vioni, na sasa inaibuka ya kwamba hata vioni kwenu, hata shahada zingine mnazozipokea kuna ufisadi humo. Je, nyinyi katika mdahalo huu wote mna mapendekezo gani kuhakikisha kwamba umma imehamasishwa katika vita dhidi ya ufisadi? Tunaomba mchango au maswali kule nyuma tafadhali.
My name is David Gatia from Kenya Methodist University. Naunga mkono PLO lumwa kusema acha shahada zenye zinapatikana siku hizi wanafunzi wengi wanatumia njia baya kuzipata. Kuna wenyewe wanahongana. So sisi kama wanafunzi ama tungeomba hizi vyuo mingi, like we have a lot of the institutions that can be brought about to deal with the institutions, with the corruption. Tungewaomba pia wakuja wa involve the students so that they can deal with the anti-corruption from the grassroots, from the level. Asanteni.
Asante sana. Nimekusikiza vema, lakini tatizo, wengine wanasema ya kwamba tatizo la Kenya, Wakenya kila kukicha wanaomba wafanyi. Nani atajibu swali lako? Tuache kuomba, tuanze kutenda. Kuna nani ambaye atachangia?
Hamjambo. Jina langu ni Job kutoka Transparency International, na pia nilikuwa mwanafunzi chuo kikuu cha Nairobi mwaka uliopita. Jambo ambalo amesema ni kuomba. Kwa mfano kuna kuomba serikali, na swali langu ni je, tutaomba mpaka lini? Basi kama vijana sisi wenyewe tunachangia katika mambo ya ufisadi, kwa sababu mara nyingi tunavunja sheria. Ukijipata umevunja sheria, inabidi njia ya mkato ambayo utajinasua nayo ni kupatia mlinda sheria, kama ni askari, kama ni mwalimu, ujakuja ujafanya mtihani. Basi unataka kuona mwalimu umpatie kitu kidogo akuwekea alama zako. Mbona usijifanye mwanafunzi mzuri, mwananchi mzuri? Uangalie, uzitazame, uchukulie kwa uangalifu sana na heshima kubwa sheria zote zilizowekwa. Ndivyo usije ukajipata ile maneno mnasema kwa sheng kona mbaya. Kama umezingatia sheria tunaweza kuavoid ufisadi sana. Asante.
Thank you. Samuel, last year I was in Uganda at a function called the launch of the Black Monday.
No.
And what they do on a Black Monday, or the theme was that every Monday, every Ugandan was being called upon to dress in black. And they were urging churches and mosques that they should not even accept tithes from people who are known to participate in corruption. Do you think we should take that direction so that when I pay my tithe, my church will ask, but what is the source of this money?
Well, I think we should be inspired by that kind of thinking, because the philosophy behind that is to make sure that there is social sanctioning for behavior that is considered illicit. So we can be inspired by that kind of philosophy and come up with our own ways of shaming and sanctioning socially those who engage in corruption.
I hear you, Samuel, but the tragedy in Kenya in the recent past is that when you name people to shame them, they don't get ashamed. They become even bolder. What do we do with these people who are never ashamed?
Well, I think it's upon us as Kenyans to shame them, because they may not be ashamed. Their conscience may be seared to a level where they consider themselves above the law. But Kenyans themselves can shame them. And a lot of them find solace in positions of leadership. And fortunately, in many of those positions, they will have to come to Kenyans to ask for their votes. So if Kenyans were to determine that we are going to sanction socially these people, we would not even wait for the legal system or the institutions that are in place to move on them. We would actually move on them and ensure that they are shut out from the public spaces of this country.
Let's now come to the Transparency International, and even the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee has established networks across the country. I know your own organization is present in different parts of the country, as is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. What are the things that you are doing specifically to ensure that the masses are energized to participate in the fight against corruption?
One of the things that we are doing is really to create awareness. And we create awareness and educate members of the public, not just on corruption and how it manifests itself, but also on how they can play their role in addressing corruption. So we are educating members of the public in that regard. We are also working with the leadership at the counties and also at the national level to make sure that we put in place structures that support public participation. We are working with a number of counties to elaborate public participation laws at the county levels, and to create opportunities for members of the public to give their views and to be heard. We also mobilizing members of the public to come forward and give their input to the various processes that are taking place at the county level. And also important is that we are part of the integrated public complaints referral mechanism that brings together the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Commission on Administrative Justice, the National Commission on Human Rights, and the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. You will notice that all these are bodies that have as their core mandate the receiving and processing of public complaints of different issues, be they corruption, human rights violations, and so on and so forth. So we have come together to create a platform that will enable members of the public to launch complaints of whatever complaint that falls in the mandate of any of these bodies can be launched in any of these bodies' offices, so that we can share the infrastructure that exists and ensure that the resources that would be required to duplicate the offices of these national commissions in all the counties are used for other purposes, and that the resources that are available in these commissions are resources that are shared by these commissions to ensure members of the public can be heard, can launch their complaints, and the complaints will be heard as if they appeared before the commission that is concerned.
Samuel, here, you know, there is a sense in which some Kenyan will say the only thing that we know to be corruption are the following. One, giving a bribe and receiving a bribe. Major corruption such as Anglo-Leasing, Goldenberg, Triton and all. Could you tell Kenyans who are listening and viewing what in the world today is deemed to constitute acts of corruption, so that they know what it is they must report and fight against?
I think a good starting point would be to elaborate on the definition that Transparency International as a worldwide movement has adopted. And that is that corruption is the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. And it is important just to unpackage that. Entrusted power it means that you have been placed in a position of trust where people expect you to discharge a certain responsibility on their behalf. It could be in a public office, it could be in a social gathering, it could be a chama, as we know them today, it could be the village well committee, it could be the church committee, it could be a ministry or a department of government. But as long as there is...
It could be a teacher and a student.
Precisely. And it could be a farmer and an extension officer.
And it could be a teacher who takes a pencil from school to take to his child.
Precisely. So the range is quite big, but what is basic about it is that you have power that is you have power that is entrusted to you for the public good, but you decide to use that power for your own private benefit or for the private benefit of someone else associated with you. So there's the element of the entrusted power, the abuse of it, and then the fact that the gain could be private. And here I want to say that it also includes public officials who who manipulate the procurement processes so that they can fundraise for their parties to win the next election. So that is also corruption. So there's a whole range of corruption that incidents or cases of corruption that you can enumerate. But there will be basically bribery, the most common of them. There is the conflict of interest, where you are again in a position of conflict, where your interests and the interest of the public conflict with your own.
But Samuel, how do you deal with that, particularly in a country where if I am employed in public service, my entire village believes that one of my primary duties is to employ the entire village?
Prof, we have to confront that, because I think it's the big elephant in the room, if I may use that phrase. I do know through my own interactions that there are many of us in public offices who do not believe that conflict of interest rules apply to them, because the socialization that we have been socialized into is that we occupy public offices for our own benefits and the benefits of those around us. It is something we have to confront. The first step, in my view, is to educate ourselves and members of the public on this, because I do realize that there are elements of it that are not very well understood. And in some cases, you will even find people who are genuinely shocked that you can be telling them that they cannot be sitting in a board and also be doing work for that board, either directly or through a proxy. So it is a question of educating ourselves and then to develop codes of conduct and ethics that we can observe in our conduct of public affairs, so that we know that once you have a position of trust, anything that conflicts, any personal issue that conflicts with the interest of the public needs to be declared, and in many cases you have to remove yourself from making a decision that benefits you in that case.
Thank you very much, viewers, fellow Kenyans. So the book we should be writing is not, it is our turn to eat, but it is our turn to serve. This evening we have been talking about the role of members of the public in the fight against corruption. Our visitor was Samuel Kimeu, the Director of Transparency International, the Kenyan chapter. You members of the public, the duty is yours. It is a patriotic duty. Remember, corruption is not only a crime, it is a sin. And if you are corrupt, you will never see heaven. That is one of the things that you must remember. We'll be back again next week in our quest to ensure that corruption is fought and fought to the death. Samuel, thank you very much.
Thanks
and
a lot.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Mimi nataka ushirika na wewe, ewe Roho, mimi nataka ushirika na wewe.
Je,